There's a meeting happening in Jerusalem, a private meeting, and the people in that room are some of the most powerful religious figures in the ancient world. They're not debating theology. They're not planning a festival. They're trying to figure out how to kill someone without starting a riot. And what I want you to think about before we even open the text is what that says about them. These aren't cartoon villains. They're educated men, trained in the law, deeply committed to protecting something they believed in. And they're terrified. That's not a small thing. Because usually when powerful people are afraid of a single person, it's worth asking, what exactly did that person do? This week we're walking through Matthew 26, verses 1 through 35. 5 days, 5 questions. Day 1, the conspiracy. Day 2, a woman who does something that the disciples completely miss. Day 3, Judas, and the question of what the text actually tells us about why he did it. Day 4, the Last Supper, where Jesus takes a meal the disciples knew by heart and completely rewrites what it means. Day 5, Peter's promise and what Jesus says back to him. It's one of the most compressed, charged passages in the entire gospel. Everything is converging. Let's start at the beginning, Matthew 26, verses 1 through 5. Here's what it says. When Jesus had finished saying all these things, he said to his disciples, "As you know, the Passover is 2 days away, and the Son of Man will be handed over to be crucified." Then the chief priests and the elders of the people assembled in the palace of the high priest, whose name was Caiaphas, and they schemed to arrest Jesus secretly and kill him. "But not during the festival," they said, "or there may be a riot among the people." 4 verses. That's it. And already there are 2 conversations happening simultaneously. And Matthew wants you to feel both of them at once. First thing to catch, that opening phrase, when Jesus had finished saying all these things. This is a formula. Matthew uses it 5 times in his gospel, and every single time it marks the end of a major discourse. This one closes out the Olivet Discourse, 5 chapters where Jesus has been teaching about the end of the age, about judgment, about the coming of the Son of Man. And then, mid-breath almost, he pivots. The Passover is 2 days away, and I'm going to be crucified. He's not predicting it with uncertainty. The Greek verb here is paradidōmi, to be handed over, to be delivered up. It's passive. Something is going to be done to him. And he says it like he already knows exactly how this ends. And then immediately, same chapter, next verse, Matthew cuts to the chief priests meeting at Caiaphas' house. This is intentional. Matthew is doing something cinematically sophisticated. Jesus announces his death at the same moment his death is being planned. 2 plans, 2 timelines, and they're about to collide. The Greek word Matthew uses for what the chief priests did is symboúlion, elabon. They took counsel together, they formed a plot. It's the kind of language you'd use for a military strategy session. And look at what they decide. Not during the festival, or there may be a riot. The word translated riot is thoribos. Noise, uproar, a crowd going out of control. That's what they're afraid of. Not justice, not truth, not even the question of whether Jesus is who he says he is. They're managing optics. They're doing crowd control. Here's the historical context you need to understand why this matters so much. Passover in first century Jerusalem was not a quiet religious observance. It was the largest gathering in the Jewish calendar. Josephus, the Jewish historian, records that the city's population could swell from around 40 or 50,000 to somewhere between 200 and 500,000 pilgrims during Passover. Roman governors actually came down from Caesarea Maritima to Jerusalem, specifically because of the festival. That's how tense it was. The Romans kept extra troops stationed there, because Passover was the festival that commemorated Israel's liberation from an oppressive empire. Every year, people showed up already on edge. already charged, waiting, some of them, for something to happen. And Jesus had just ridden into Jerusalem on a donkey while crowds shouted, "Hosanna to the Son of David." He'd cleared the temple. He'd been publicly debating and defeating the religious leaders in the temple courts for days. He wasn't obscure. He was the story everyone was talking about. And the religious leaders know that if they move against him publicly during Passover, they might not be able to control what happens next. So they're not afraid of Jesus because he's a fraud. They're afraid of Jesus because he's effective. And this is where the passage gets harder than the Sunday school version. We often read these 4 verses as setup, background, the bad guy's doing bad guy things while the good guy's about to do the heroic thing. But Matthew's framing is doing something more demanding than that. He's putting Jesus' announcement and the leader's conspiracy on the same page, side by side, and asking you to sit inside the collision. Jesus knows. That's the thing you can't slide past. Matthew has already recorded 2 earlier passion predictions, Matthew 16, Matthew 17, where Jesus tells the disciples what's coming. This is the 3rd, and here it comes with a timestamp. 2 days. This isn't a general statement about eventual martyrdom. This is a man who knows exactly what's about to happen to him, who knows the machinery is already moving, and who keeps teaching anyway. Keeps instructing his disciples, keeps pointing forward. The religious leaders think they're the ones driving this. They think they're in control of the timeline. They're worried about the festival, about the crowds, about managing optics. They're working out logistics. And Matthew puts their conversation directly after Jesus' announcement to show you exactly who actually controls this timeline. And it's not Caiaphas. What does that mean for actual life? Think about a moment when you had information that someone else didn't. When you could see how something was going to end and the people around you were completely confident they were in charge. There's something almost unbearable about that position. You watch people plan. You watch them calculate. You watch them manage their optics, and you know that what they're managing isn't the thing they think it is. Jesus is in that position for the entire passion narrative. He's not a victim who doesn't see it coming. He's a person who sees it coming, who understands exactly what the people around him are afraid of, and who moves toward it anyway. That changes everything about how you read what comes next. The Last Supper isn't a man saying goodbye before tragedy catches up to him. It's a man who knows the timeline and decides what to do with the time he has left. That's the question underneath this whole week. Not just what happened, but what does it mean that he knew and moved anyway? And the answer to that question is going to get more specific, more strange, and more demanding the further we go.